The Dark Forest is the sequel to The Three-Body Problem. It is a very popular sci-fi in China and around the world. It is also a very popular book on BookTube. Today I will be talking about my biggest problem with this book in particular, The Dark Forest. My biggest problem with this book is the underlying tone of misogyny and how male authors are incapable of writing complex female characters. In this book, our main character, Luo Ji, creates a dream girl in his head. The dream girl has the following properties. She is obviously beautiful. She is slender, as if she can be blown away by the wind. These are quotes from the book. She is about 160 centimeters tall, which is not too tall, not too short. Her education is described to be a bachelor's, but less than a doctorate. Specifically, in the book, our main character specifies that the only purpose of her getting an education is that she can understand the world around her, but not to a point where it calcifies her. The girl is also described as growing up in an affluent family, but not so rich that she can't understand the working class life. And I'm not sure how this is translated into the English version, but it's also specified that she has received a lot of love from her family. Now, these properties definitely set a very high standard for Luo Ji's dream girl, but up to this point, other than being a little creeped out, I don't have a big problem with it, even though these requirements are unattainable and have some underlying misogynistic tones. The reason why I don't have a big problem with it is because ultimately it's all in his head. I don't really have a problem with people having preferences or having a dream wife, dream girl, dream boy, dream husband, dream partner in their heads. The thing that doesn't sit well with me is how eventually this girl actually materializes. Luo Ji used his power in this book to obtain and find this girl, bring this girl into his life, which is somewhat secluded from the life that we know, the world that we know. And I guess, spoiler alert, they ended up together, marrying and having a kid. Now, I have a lot of problem with this because this seemingly perfect girl, first of all, exists, which is already questionable. But second of all, this girl was brought into his life really without knowing what was going to happen, but then somehow kind of just took everything and accepted everything as it is. The fact that this guy had all of these fantasies about her, she didn't seem to mind any of it. And that's the part that bothers me. The difference between fantasizing a girl and having a real girl in real life is that the girl has thoughts, the girl has family, the girl has dreams, interests, friends, and yet none of these were apparent in this girl in this entire book. The girl just seemed to be okay with being essentially kidnapped. Not only that, the girl was willing to marry this guy that, to us readers, is kind of an unlikable character. He was kind of shown to the reader to be irresponsible and kind of good for nothing. He isn't particularly good looking as far as the book descriptions go, and nor does he have any accomplishments. So I guess it just mind boggles me that this girl will willingly step into a situation like this and will willingly accept this man as her husband and will willingly marry and, for the lack of better word, mate with a guy like him. The reason why I think this is problematic is because I do think that this sends a message of normalizing and romanticizing objectification of women. Spoiler alert, again, this character actually didn't serve a lot of purpose to the final plot of this book. In fact, I think she could be eliminated entirely. I guess if I were to stretch, she did give our character some growth, but not a lot. And this relationship was later described as a symbol for love in humanity. I'm sorry, a relationship in which a girl has basically no say and no personality, and the only purpose that she serves is sex and character growth for the male character, I fail to understand where the love is. Even though this relationship did not take up a lot of the book's plot, it did make me very uncomfortable reading about it. It seemed like an extremely unbalanced relationship. It seemed like the girl had no say and was overly compliant and obedient to her situation, which is completely unrealistic. And there's a minor detail that also bothered me about this. The girl's age was said to be around 22 because she just graduated her bachelor's degree. We do not know how old Luo Ji is, but he is a professor, a college professor. So I can only guess that his age is probably at least 30, 35. While that makes both of them legal adults, I do think that there is a power imbalance there because when the girl first met Luo Ji, she actually called Luo Ji by Lao Shi, and Lao Shi in Chinese is directly translated to teacher, but you can also use it for people of authority. Which kind of indicates that the girl did not step into this relationship, if you will, with the idea of a consensual romantic relationship, whereas right from the get-go, Luo Ji had the intention of pursuing this as a romantic relationship, even though he says he doesn't, but we, as the readers, know how much he has fantasized over this girl. All I can say is this entire relationship made my reading experience incredibly uncomfortable, and I know that people praise this book for its plot, and I definitely did enjoy the plot. I cannot, in my good conscience, praise this book for its characters because it just completely failed me. In fact, not only did it fail me, it is deeply problematic in my eyes. The author is a Chinese man, and the reason why I mention that is because I've also read a lot of tropes. I've also read similar storylines or similar tropes used in other Asian literature, and the fact that I see this repeated pattern of ideal girl coming into life, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think there is a pattern here, and I do think that because of the Asian culture and because of how innately misogynistic and sexist it is, male Asian authors tend to have a hard time writing female characters that resonate with other female readers. I know that some people might argue that you have to separate the art from the artist, and that doesn't mean that there is a sexist message in here, or it doesn't mean that the author himself is sexist. I just kind of want to make it clear that I am not of that camp. I believe that the art is deeply connected with the artist. I think people tend to write about emotions that they've felt, experiences that they've experienced, cultures that they've experienced. They can try to emulate other experiences, but I do think that ultimately it will resemble what they know. And that's why I have a hard time separating the art from the artist, and that's why, in a sense, I'm so harsh on this book, because to me it can't just be a sci-fi book that talks about humanity without really looking into the problems of humanity. And that's why I can't help but call this book sexist and misogynistic, because there are some misogynistic and sexist and objectification in this book that I just can't ignore. And maybe I'm just more sensitive to it because I am a woman and I do experience this kind of objectification everywhere. But I just want to point this out to people who didn't maybe notice it on their first read, or maybe didn't really think about it in the point of view that I am pointing out right now. With that all being said, I am not here to say that women don't do the same thing in literature or fiction. Female authors definitely do the same thing. For example, Twilight is a good example of how female authors kind of objectified male characters and kind of hold male characters up to a standard that is unachievable and unrealistic. I mean, it's 2020. I think we should all be striving to just be a little bit more inclusive. I don't think I'm asking a lot. I'm just asking for gender equality, which a lot of people think that we have achieved. But just by reading literature, sometimes I wonder how far have we really come. I understand that sometimes fiction is there for you to escape reality, but what kind of a message would that book be sending if it kind of portrays part of our society as invaluable, mistreated, and oppressed? I don't think that sends a very good message, and it kind of alienates a part of your reader, so why would you do that? Anyway, that is my rant on this book, The Dark Forest. I'm not sure if my rambling made any sense, but if you're still here, thank you for listening to my rant, and I'll see you in my next video.